All right, good morning and welcome everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Shauna DiUlio, the General Manager for the Master Association. Today we are gathered here to tackle a vital topic, preparing for hurricane season and staying safe during disasters. We have experts here from your governing entities, the county, and various other important organizations, all ready to give you all the resources and information you need to help get you through the season. However, it's always important to start with the really important stuff, so let's make sure everyone has gotten your delicious pastries and coffee from Panera Bread, which were so generously provided to us by USI. And of course, since we know there's no better way to draw a crowd than free pastries, again, thank you, Brian and USI, for helping us draw attention to this really important cause. All right, and before I turn it over to our first speaker, we have a little video that we're going to play for you to kind of help set the mood and help you understand why what we're doing here today is so important. All right, and with that, we'll turn it over to our first speaker, Ms. Marian Meeker. She is the chair of the Disaster Planning Committee.
Welcome, everyone. It's good to see so many people here. That experience was not one that that was a year after the actual disaster. So a group of us went to Pine Island, Matlacha, and saw firsthand and spoke to a wonderful guest who allowed us to be her guest to discuss all of the issues that were at hand. So we did get some insight from what that kind of situation brings to us. Our disaster Planning Committee was established in 2018. Every year, we conduct many meetings prior to kickoff and gather the most up-to-date information from all Hillsborough County emergency agencies. Many of them are here today. In 2020, the Master Association created the Kings Point Disaster Planning website. You can go right out to the website. It's kpmaster.com/disaster planning, where anyone may go to for the plethora of updated information to prepare for a disaster, especially a hurricane. The committee itself is comprised of residents of Kings Point, most with firsthand knowledge and experience with the emergency system here in Hillsborough County, and the community leaders from the Master, the Federation, First Service, and Vesta. We really have an interest and support from people in the county because they know we do this. Just as a reminder, in April, we also had a workshop for board members. We have 114 boards out there, and we invite them every spring to a workshop to tell them their responsibilities to you, the residents, and to the Master, the Federation, Vesta, and First Service. So we are working diligently. We have new projects coming up, and we will continue to work to fortify our community so that we will not have to experience a disaster. Thank you for coming, and we're on to the next.
All right, next up is Miss Debbie Lauber from First Service Residential.
Good morning, everyone. Debbie Lauber, General Manager for First Service Residential. The role for First Service in preparation for impact, our team will begin to communicate important information to you in advance, but First Service is not responsible for helping residents secure their own homes. I can't say this enough, but even when you leave for the summer, which many of you are about to do or have your neighbors have done, you should put everything the way that can move in the wind. So you need to secure your common areas in advance of a storm or when you're leaving for an extended period of time. Also, another important thing to remember is to turn off your main water source in your unit, because there's nothing worse than coming back and you found something leaking. It should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. You are responsible for yourselves. And you should have your own emergency plan, including the decision to stay or go. And if you go, you need to let your loved ones, your neighbors, or someone, just give someone an idea of where you've gone. If you're staying, the same thing. Let them know what you're doing. That way, because we won't be able to answer that for them when they call us. First Service is responsible for coordinating vendors and contractors under the scope of our authority on behalf of the Federation to respond as quickly as possible in the event they are needed. The contractors include your landscapers. There's some pre-storm preparation and post-storm cleanup that will be coordinated between First Service and the landscaper with a clear action plan given to the board. The tree contractor. Monster will have completed a full service of the entire community by the end of July. Post-storm, Monster would be on site to serve associations. Insurance. First Service will coordinate claim reporting through USI Heritage for property damages. FCC trash pickup. This is one we'll be working with FCC, and most likely Hillsborough County will have issues if you do have some bigger storm damage of where to place it. Spectrum, internet, and cable. We can determine as soon as possible their plan for restoration in the event of outages. Response plan. First Service employees will mobilize as soon as it is safe, recognizing that our staff may have been impacted as well. One benefit you have is that several of the managers and staff live right here in Sun City Center, And the last storm, before they were even told, they were on site, as well as the landscape specialists, to check out any damages that may have occurred. So, but we may also be limited in our capabilities due to the utility and communication outages as well. When it's all clear to return, First Service will mobilize vendors, ask boards to provide us with an assessment of their community as soon as possible, and prioritize cleanup based on access, safety, and prevention of further damage. Cosmetic debris will be the last thing dealt with. Considerations for associations. And mind you, this is not just for boards, because at any time, if the emergency powers are exercised, you could become part of the board. Association boards should have a plan to mitigate damages and exercise emergency powers of the board if necessary. Write it down and distribute it. And in the emergency powers, one of the things that it allows the board to do, should there not be on property, they can name assistant officers, persons who are not directors, that can act as an executive officer and fill in to assist the absence or unavailability. That way, your association can still mitigate the damages. Understand that you may need funds while the insurance claims are processed, and anticipate extra costs for cleanup. The Federation Fund is only so deep. So with the insurance claim, that's why I guess when I get back to my money days, we always urge the association to have some surplus funds to cover anything that was unforeseen, and a storm would be one of those. And with that said, the biggest thing is you're responsible for yourself, and when you're leaving, please secure your property. Thanks.
All right, next we have Jim Allen for the Master Association.
Good morning. One of the things that I think probably we forgot to mention is that if you have your cell phone with you, if you could place it on vibrate so that if it goes off, and if you do take a phone call, we ask that you step out of the auditorium to take the call so that you don't disrupt people around you from hearing the messages. Thank you. The Master Association's role in disaster planning is to help minimize safety and monetary risks for the entire community with regards to the infrastructure and roadways. In an effort to prepare as much as we can ahead of time, we conduct regular inspections of our roads, bridges, drainage structures, and landscaping to identify and mitigate any potential safety hazards in advance of the storm. For example, right now we are working with our landscaper to schedule tree for the removal of any dead or hazardous branches and to complete this work prior to the start of the season. We also provide designated staging areas throughout the property for each of the 4 section landscapers and the restoration vendors to use for landscape and construction debris during the cleanup process. In the event of a hurricane's watch is issued, a visual inspection of the property will take place. This inspection will include looking for any fallen branches or debris that will be picked up. Loose articles and debris will be removed from the lake outfalls. Obstructions will be cleared from the storm drains along the master roadways, and the irrigation yard will be secured, and all pumps and controllers will be turned off to protect the system during the storm. After the storm, we will have a manager on site as soon as it is safe to do so to assess the damage and start coordinating the cleanup process. It's also critical to highlight that we have entered into a storm agreement with Russell Landscaping. This guarantees us priority landscaping services post-storm and ensures that Russell will be here on property as soon as it is safe to do so that we can get to the work of clearing the roads for emergency vehicle access. Additionally, the agreement lays out a predetermined pricing so we have clear expectations of what our cleanup costs will be ahead of time. That way, there are no surprises when the bill comes. Similarly, we have secured a contract with Global Engineering for priority services for our drainage infrastructure. With the contractors in high demand post-storm, these agreements are really important as they prioritize Kings Point and ensures our community's needs are addressed promptly. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And I just wanted to add another role that the Master Association plays in disaster planning is the sponsorship of this disaster planning committee. We are very proud to collaborate closely with the Federation, First Service, VESTA, and the COA in developing a comprehensive disaster plan for our entire community. And as part of that overall plan, the Master recently made a contribution to enhance our preparedness efforts. We funded the installation of a new tower and antenna for the radio club, thereby extending handheld radio coverage throughout Kings Point. Now the club is here today to talk to you and tell you more about that, but this will ensure that residents can seek assistance even when cellular service is unavailable, and they'll also provide a dedicated channel for management and vendors to use so that we can communicate with each other post-storm. Additionally, another important thing that we did was we've acquired 2 satellite Starlink systems. For those of you who may not know what that is, it's a satellite-based internet system. It's cutting-edge technology that will allow us to have internet access even if cellular and traditional internet services are down. So that's very important there. The 2 units that we have, one will be stationary for use in the office, and this will ensure the continuity of our operations during internet outages. And the second unit will be a mobile unit, and that will function as a hotspot, which we can put on a golf cart or one of our mules and take to various locations around the property. That way residents can log on and use it as a hotspot so they can access their loved ones and vital information that they may need access to post-storm. Right now we are working on testing and putting a plan together so we can implement everything and get this, as part of our comprehensive plan. We are very, very, very excited about this technology and looking forward to how it's going to progress, and we will of course keep you updated as we progress and move forward. And I think that covers it for the Master Association. So next up is Mrs. Dr. Sandra Yosha.
Good morning. I'm going to see if the slide mover moves, but those who are pet owners or have family members or friends who are pet owners that you would be concerned about, there are some special needs that we need to address with our pets. So let's see. What we learned from Katrina and other storms is that 80% would not go, 76%, 80% would not go to shelters if they couldn't take their pets, and even if they could take their pets with them. Not all shelters allow that, and when they did allow that, you'd be in a separate room and not allowed to be with them. Most pet owners did not find that acceptable. Let's see. So the same considerations if you're in a mandatory evacuation zone, for yourself, do I stay or do I go? I urge all the pet owners to make that decision very early. Prepare for it whether you're staying or going, because you have some special needs that you have to meet. Now, one of the things that Katrina did for us was the federal law was passed that said that there should be allowances for public shelters to accommodate people with their pets. Again, there's very few, and the ones that are available, you would not be with your pets. Most people found that very unacceptable. And for public, there are often pet-friendly hotels, campgrounds, etc. But in a major disaster area, that's not a guarantee. They could shut their doors or change their mind at any time. You'd get there and you would not be able to have your pet with you. So keep that in mind as well. Also, the cost involved, it could be as much as $25 a day per pet. That's pretty cost prohibitive for most of us. So when in doubt, just decide early. Take with you what you need. This is a chart that I have prepared for you. CDC has guidelines of some of the things to consider. Vaccine, medical records, special crates, the restraints that you would need, kitty litter, food, all those things that are separate for your pet. You'd have to prepare all of that ahead of time. Sometimes not necessarily the public ones. Most shelters will not turn you away. But on some of the private ones, rabies is mandatory. You can't get in without one. So I can't predict whether that's going to happen to you or not. So you have the 2 to 4 week supply of all your equipment, all your special needs that to take care of your pet, including restraints that you may or may not. Cat owners, most of the cats are at home free, roaming free. So you'd have to make sure that you have confinement when you take your cat with you. One consideration is you're stressed, they're stressed. We have products over the counter as well as prescription products that you can have to keep your cat or your dog's stress at a minimum. And I would urge you to consider looking into one of those and have them with your kit. So that's it, basically, but try to decide early, have all your things needed that for your pet specifically. If you decide early enough and have a place to go, the best place to go is away and with family or friends. That's your best option. Thank you.
All right, next up is the Hillsborough County Fire and Rescue. Okay, they may not be with us today. We'll move on. Hillsborough County Emergency Management Team, Trey Lawson.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out. This is one of the bigger parts of hurricane preparedness, coming out and learning about what's going on, what to prepare for, and starting to make a plan. Making a plan is probably the easiest portion, easiest process in hurricane preparedness, but it's the last thing that we all decide to do. Some of us don't decide to make a plan until a hurricane threatens. What we have to start doing beginning of the season, at the end of the season, start preparing for the following season. Start getting your items together, coming up with a plan of what you will do, what your family will do, if you're gonna stay or if you're gonna go. If you're in a mandatory evacuation zone, we encourage everyone in those zones. Once we call it a mandatory evacuation, we encourage everyone to leave and evacuate at that time. Reason being, once sustained winds get to 40 miles an hour and you decide that you need assistance leaving, we are unable to come out and assist. All emergency personnel will be taken off the road, so no one will be able to come and assist at that time, so you will have no other choice but to shelter in place. If you decide to evacuate, as Dr. Yosha said, look towards family and friends. That should be the first place that you go if you're evacuating. General shelters are built for built for safety, not comfort. So you won't be able to bring in air mattresses and all of your extra items. You'll have a certain amount of space where you'll be able to call your own for that time being. We want to get as many people as possible into the shelters, into safety. For Hurricane Irma, we had over 8,000 residents of Hillsborough County to go to a shelter. For Hurricane Ian, we had less than 1,000. Another thing, as far as the pet shelters, as Dr. Yosha also said, pet shelters, we have 8 pet shelters in Hillsborough County. Not every shelter will be open during an activation. Shelters will be open depending on phase and depending on the threat of the storm. When your pets do come with us, as Dr. Yosha said, your pet will be in a different area, but we encourage you to interact with your pets throughout the day as long as it's safe outside, but your pets will be in the general area with other pets, and they will have, I don't like to say cage because I don't like to treat them like zoo animals, but your pet will be in a certain area and be maintained in that location, and your pet is in an unfamiliar place just like you are, so we encourage you to spend as much time with your pet as possible during those times if that's the direction you decide to go. But the biggest and hardest part about storms and disaster nowadays is the recovery process. It comes after the storm. The storm may last minutes or hours, but the recovery process can last over years. As you've seen on the video shown earlier, Ian, a year later, still damages down there. Panama City Beach from Hurricane Michael, they're still not fully recovered. There's still areas where people are still struggling, and that was 6 years ago. So the best thing now is to prepare for yourself now, which will make the recovery process a lot easier because you'll have a plan in place and you will know what you need to do to move forward at that time.
I think next we have Master Deputy Jeff Mary from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. All right, we have a speaker from the department, Hillsborough County Department of Health.
Hi everyone, my name is Megan Pritz. I'm with the Hillsborough County Department of Health, and we're here to talk to you about our special needs shelter program. So for those of you who don't already know, these special needs shelter, they are evacuation facilities in the event of a hurricane. So our shelters are similar to general shelters in that they are in school gyms and classrooms, but we do provide continuous electricity for medical equipment, and we also provide safety from the storm, but they are not comfortable environments. So we encourage everyone to have a primary plan that does not include going to a shelter. You know, it's a good time to take a trip to Disney or go to Montana. I hear it's very nice this time of year. If you would like more information about our special needs shelter program, we'd be happy to give you more information, talk to you about our registration process, and we'll be in the next room. Thank you so much.
All right, now Master Deputy Jeff Mary.
So good morning. I think I have like the most responsibility of anybody at the table, so I'm quitting now before hurricanes come. So, a couple things. First off, I pretty much stay in close contact with our EOC. Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office also sends deputies and detectives up to the EOC in the coming days of a storm. One of the first things I do is get with everybody in their services and tell them when to go home. So I'll recommend, I can't make them do anything, but I can recommend that. So when your gate security gets pulled, when security patrol goes home, when the squad shuts down, and that's typically going to be anywhere in that 20 to 30 mile an hour sustained wind range, so that they can get home and shelter and get their things necessary to ride out the storm for them to shelter in place. As he said earlier, emergency services right around 35 miles an hour, sustained winds no longer respond. So if you do plan on staying in your home, understand that you are it, and whatever you have in your home is it until the storm subsides and we can get back out there. The last storm, last September, I believe we were out of service for about 8 hours. So just understand that and be prepared for that. And then also be prepared if we're without power. The storm prior, 33% of Sun City Center didn't have power for almost 2 days. So understand that. If you've got medical needs, if you've got oxygen machines, if you've got things that you're going to need power, when you're making your plan ahead of time, think about those things. Take that into account. And again, she said, go like Montana or Midwest or, probably be easier. Don't go to Disney because the hurricane will track you there. I mean, we've seen that happen, right? Everybody loves the House of Mouse. So, but once we close down and then we open back up, and I don't mean you open back up, but we get services and then we take an assessment. Hey, do we have power lines out? Do we have trees down? And then I also give the all clear for residents to come back out. Even though some of y'all don't listen and like to go out early, check out the damage and see what all's happened. I don't recommend that at all. Last time we had a lot of power lines down, we had a lot of red lights out, and as we know, Sun City Center people can't drive anyway, me included. So, when all the red lights are out on Sun City Center Boulevard, it's just a melee. And So just, wait for the all clear, understand what you've got to do if you shelter in place. And, we're all in this together. We've got pretty good plans, but don't wait till the last second. Have it ready and just stick with it. Don't be one of those people that's at Wawa 5 minutes before the storm getting a $48, case of water. So just be prepared, and we're going to help you through it. And so if you have any other questions, comments, concerns, you know where my office is.
All right, up next, although he's hiding over here in the corner, is your Chief of Security, Mr. Pete Doxey.
Good morning. Morning. Let me turn this bad boy on. Although I don't have an inside voice, I will use the microphone. I am your Chief of Security. For those who have not met me, my name is Peter Doxey. You all know where my office is? Anybody here not know where my office is? Because I keep my door open when I'm in. Over by the wood chippers, you know where the wood chippers is? Other end of the hallway, that's where my office is. Okay, so a lot of good information here. I'm going to yield most of my time because we have a lot of people here that's going to put out some things you need to hear. All right. The biggest thing, the best is concerned with, obviously, is getting the access points back up and manned if we do have to secure, and getting the amenities back up and running, provided they're safe to do so. That's our two priorities that we're going to do. All right. You got to remember, we have to make sure it's safe to get out there. The morning after an event, when we secure, we're not going to get out until it's light, at the very least, and until Mr. Master Deputy says, Pete, you can get your team out there. Okay? Please understand that. Now, with that being said, the procrastinators here, how many storms are they predicting this year? 20 to 25. The average is about 12 to 14. Okay, there's a couple of factors to that. I'm not a weather guest, I'm not even going to try to be one. Okay, the biggest thing you're hearing is very repetitive. Have a plan in place that works for you. And everybody in here is different. Please do not wait till the last minute to say, oh my God, I should have. Because then it's too late. Okay, please, please, please. All right. Also, how many tax-free, what is July going to be for everybody? What did DeSantis just sign the other day? Tax-free. Tax-free. Pay attention to the communications that go out from the state of Florida, please. And if you need to partake in something, hey, every little bit helps, right? There's also going to be 2 dedicated, I believe, disaster preparedness tax-free. One's going to be in May, I think it's coming up, one in August. All right, so please pay attention to that. Every little bit helps. With that being said, I will be over there. I know everybody's going to have questions. And we're going to say hi. I will be standing by to talk to each and every one of you. Thank you for being here. Okay. I'm sorry?
Tell everybody this is not a shelter.
Okay. Everybody, this is not a shelter. I say again, everybody, this is not a shelter. Okay, none of our buildings are. Okay? Please understand that. When the Master Deputy says, Pete, you got to go, we're leaving. And we'll get back on site as soon as humanly possible. That's a promise. Okay? Most of my officers, from the 41 gate officers that I have for the access points, live in here. I do not. I'm old enough to, but don't. But I will be here before they know. I'm going to yield the rest of my time.
All right. Thank you, Pete. Next up, we have Tim Broad from Security Patrol.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. What does the Security Patrol do? Well, we patrol around the town. If there's a hurricane or something that happens that shuts everything down, we will still carry on until it's unsafe to do so. That level is, as Jeff Murray said, 35 miles an hour. Everybody shuts down, and we probably need to get our people home, so by 20 to 30 miles an hour, we're sending people home to look after themselves. The most important thing being safety of people. But you can make and repair, but it's difficult to repair people, as you know. when the storm comes, after it's gone, there'll be a control center. In conjunction, communication is the name of the game. We would make sure, before we sent our drivers out to look round to catalogue damage or anything what's broken, we would liaise with the controller, Mr. Jeff, and make sure he's happy with us to go out and drive around. Myself and my deputy chief will be there just to make sure we're not going to ask people to do something that is dangerous. The key thing at that aftermath of the storm is patrolling will keep away the looters, because that's the biggest risk everyone has of people trying to take advantage of a situation. We will make sure we have people around looking out for people who shouldn't be there. We will always, as well as we would now part of the listening post for the emergency network that was spoken of a few moments ago. So we would be manning that and be there to keep communications open, and I understand that is working 24/7 once a disaster has been declared. Go or not go, leave town or stay. All up to everybody to make their own personal choice. However, it is important to let people know whether you're staying or whether you're going. What we don't want is a building collapsed and we don't know if there's anyone inside it. If you happen to be the unfortunate one inside it, you'd like to know that someone's going to come looking for you. On the other hand, so what the security patrol does, we have house data cards. I'm sure they have something similar here at Kings Point. If you leave, let people know where you're going, how we can contact you, and even more important here, who you will allow to go into your house if there's anything damaged and needed. I'm sorry, the security patrol does not be a receptacle for house keys. Our insurance won't let us do that. But please make sure you know someone who's a friend, who you trust, that will be able to go in your house. Everyone talking about what you do. One of the things that we would look at is we need to plan ahead. And looking at the future, what the thing is, what we are looking at now is there is a case that we should have an emergency response center here in this town that would survive a hurricane, but have its own power and its fuel supplies and able to continue without support from the outside world until there was an opportunity to get repairs made or roads cleared. And that's what we've been looking at the Security Patrol, is looking at an integrated response center that would help, we believe, everybody in this town. That's all I've got to say. Thank you for the opportunity of talking to you. Bye.
All right, next up we have the ER Director from Southshore Hospital, Dave Welch.
Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here this morning with you. I don't like to sit, so I'm going to stand. I am new to Florida, so I'm new to this wind with a name. I've been down here for about a year from close to Chicago, so I'm used to 4 foot of snow and ice, which is probably why everyone now is in Florida, because we don't like that. The biggest thing I can say from hearing my colleagues here speak this morning is there's a theme. What's the theme that we're talking about when it comes to hurricane preparedness? plan. Have a plan and prepare for it. Know what you're going to do, so you have a plan to be able to make the decision that's going to be best for you. For HCA, Southshore Hospital, we're right across the street. We do not close. We do have a plan. Our plan, if you're unaware, is we set up disaster teams. So 24 hours before the impact of whatever storm is coming, we have a team A, and that is a group of team. All caregivers at Southshore Hospital are given A, B, or C disaster team plan. Team A comes in 24 hours before the hurricane, and they are here through the hurricane. The minute there's an all clear, Team B comes in, so we can continue to have operations throughout the storm. When it comes to you, we are here to care for you, especially probably those procrastinators who stayed and decided, oh my goodness, I need health care. We will be here. The problem that we're going to run into is, depending on damage, or if we're within the time frame of the storm, is EMS is not going to be able to get you to us. And I highly discourage you trying to drive over to the hospital. There will come a point where you need to hunker down and stay where you're at. Our hospital facility, some operations may close, but for myself as the director of the ER, we will be open, and we are here to provide care for our patients that come in. But just like others have said, the hospital is not a shelter. We need to be able to take care of those who come in and are sick or have a need and are that need medical care and treatment. That is what we're doing. We are not a shelter. We will not have space for people who have lost, homes or things like that. So again, that comes in with that planning phase. Have a plan. But for healthcare services, we are here. Our divisional operation, one good thing about being part of a giant corporation like HCA is we do have a lot of resources that will be provided. Our West Florida divisional team will actually set up shop right in our facility. So the divisional team will run their operations out of our facility, which the benefit to that is that if they need a resource, guess what? We're gonna get the resource. And they ship in, they haven't had to do it here, but other facilities, they will ship in fuel to make sure that nurses and physicians can get to the hospital, because we want to be there to take care of those who need health care. But we are open unless we have an ultimate power failure, and then we would have to evacuate. But otherwise, our facility will be open. But again, the biggest thing I can tell everybody is to have a plan. Write it out. The best case scenario is you don't ever have to use that plan, but have that plan, because there will come a time frame where EMS will not be able to get you to us. We are not going to be able to come out and get you, and it is highly dangerous for you to try and get to us in those conditions. So have a plan. Last thing I would say is, when we were talking about pets, also we cannot shelter people and we cannot shelter pets. So make sure we have a plan for those types of things. That's all I have. Again, I will be out here as well if you have any other questions regarding HCA, but we are glad to be here and glad to be your partner in care. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. Now it is on to Mr. Jim Gundry for Samaritan Services.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Samaritan Services will continue using our established policy when it comes to storm emergencies. This is subject to change based on the directives from emergency management personnel and sustained wind speed. Another factor that may affect the policy is availability of drivers, who are all volunteers. Out-of-town rides. This service is for rides for medical appointments, usually in Brandon, Tampa, or Bradenton. This service will end 48 hours prior to a storm event. This is for the safety of our drivers and clients. We will resume this service as soon as possible and safe to do so. Sun City Center Ride. This service is for rides in our designated local area. We will utilize all 7 of our cars for this service to provide transportation to grocery stores, pharmacies, and banks. We will also take residents to a friend or family member's home in Sun City Center if they do not wish to be alone during the storm. I'm reminding everyone, the rider needs to be fully ambulatory, but a walker is okay, and no other destinations will be allowed. The service will be done up to 24 hours before the storm based on safety concerns and emergency management directives. Again, all Samaritan Service vehicles will be off the roads when winds exceed 35 miles an hour or earlier if directed to do so by emergency management. Meals on Wheels. This service is provided by Samaritan Services and the Women's Club of Sun City Center, who deliver the meals. The Meals on Wheels program will likely be stopped one day prior to the storm and will not start back up until the hospital is able to prepare the meals and it is safe for drivers to deliver. Again, we will advise people on Meals on Wheels on the delivery status. And when it is safe to, we receive notification that it is safe to be back on the roads, we will open our office and activate our drivers as soon as possible. Again, remember, these are all volunteers, so they have to make sure we're safe before they're on the roads. Thank you.
All right, Sun City Center Emergency Squad Chief, Mike Bardell.
Good morning. Well, first of all, if I could have found out how to turn on the microphone a little earlier, I would have spoke for Hillsborough. They texted me right prior to this starting, and being May 1st, they started a new thing, which is called Peak Unit, to try and get out and lower the response times of which they can get to somebody in need. And the gist of the message that I got was it wasn't going well. So he figured his job might be in trouble for that, so he figured he better stay and make sure it got right. So he did want me to apologize to everybody. That was their full intent to be here. And it was the chief of EMS services. So he's in charge of all the ambulance service for all Hillsborough County. So it's pretty good, but he really wanted to come down and speak to you, but he felt like he needed to be elsewhere. As far as the emergency squad goes, we're going to be here for you. We're going to be here for you as long as we can, and we will be available to you after we're told we can resume safely for the drivers to get out there. And Jeff Mary was telling you he will be the deadfall in charge of Sun City until or if the emergency management section decides that they need to bring a replacement, which will probably not be soon enough for Deputy Mary's wishes. So it's going to be a big job in trying to locate the services and get everybody the needs that they're going to need after a storm. But it's going to be one that there has been a lot of planning that has been taking place over the years. One of them is a radio network of all leadership, so they can communicate and we can take messages on who needs what, and then after the storm, that'll all be collated, and then calls start making out to bring those services in or get those services for the county. We will do that just as soon as we can. With communication, that is where the root of everything that's been screwed up over the years, over the decades, in wars and everything else, is the lack thereof. So we figured by having this network on there, it's very low tech, off a radio, and there's only 23 people on it. So therefore, it shouldn't be a lot of chatter. It should be just said, I need this and I need that. We figure that will work well in combination with other people so that some decisions can be made about what and where to do. Also, the thing comes up about knocking down your door if you don't answer. Well, nobody likes to do that. Deputy Mary doesn't want to do it. The emergency squad won't do it. So what we do is we call back to Hillsborough and then they come out. They love knocking down doors. They love the practice of it. The problem is you end up with the cost for it all if they knock down your door. They don't pay for it. So one of the ways to get around that is we have a key locator system in the squad. It's a private database, not even hooked up to the internet. You give us this information, and when, like Deputy Mary would call and say, do you have a key locator for them? We'll say yes, so that we can enter do welfare check if we have to. But that's the only way that kind of system is activated, or if we know so we can get in, so we don't have to have somebody come down and break down the door to get into your house. So just a few things for it, but as always, the squad will stand by to assist in any way we can. Thank you.
All right, Mr. John Armstrong from CERT.
This is quite a crowd. You're going to be prepared. That is what CERT is. Everybody has seen someone wearing a vest like this at one thing or another in this community and wondered, what the heck is that? CERT was a breath mint. Well, we use chewing gum. CERT was started by FEMA back in the 70s and the 80s, as FEMA recognized the need for another layer of helpers in emergency and non-emergency situations. So this was FEMA, CERT was started in Los Angeles County, and it's grown where there's CERT everywhere. There are 4 CERT teams in Hillsborough County. Your Sun City Center CERT is who I represent. CERT is not a first responder. First A, 1A responder is what we are. We come in at the direction of Hillsborough County Fire Rescue Office of Emergency Management, and my boss is here today. That's where our directive comes, where they need manpower. We have wonderful services in this town. Samaritan Service for transportation. Mike and the emergency squad do a wonderful job of pre-hospital care and transport. Security Patrol is our neighborhood watch. Hillsborough Fire Rescue does a great job for this community. CERT is available to do everything else. We fill in the gaps, we provide manpower. We train people in basic first aid, how to do a chainsaw, which is a scary thought. If you think driving is bad in this town, wait till you've got chainsaws in the hands of older people, and I'm one of them. But it's a vital part of the community. And you might have noticed us when COVID was rampant around here and we had testing and inoculations, CERT handled traffic control. We just supply the manpower. But the benefit of joining CERT is you're trained not only to help your neighbor, it makes you better prepared for events that are going to affect your life in your home and safety. So we have a great display. We'll answer your questions over in the banquet room, and I thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Dick Bishop from the Kings Point Radio Club.
Okay, can you start the slideshow for me? Thank you. Hi, my name is Dick Bishop. I'm representing the Kings Point Radio Club. Over the last 4 years, the radio club recognized there was a shortfall in our ability to communicate during storms. So, if the cell phone system is down or there's no internet, how do you call the squad or the fire department or Jeff Mary? You have no way to call them. And the wind's 35 miles an hour. You can't drive safely. You shouldn't. So you really have a period there that you can't make an emergency call. Well, the radio clubs came up with a system called DRS. It's a Disaster Radio Service, in which we provide a small radio, like so, to make that emergency call. And let's see, we provide this service throughout the community. It's a way to make a phone call or get help, not a phone call, but it's a way to get help when there's no cell service or internet service. You have no other way to make a call. Okay, next slide. It works. These are very inexpensive, but really dependable radios. They're only 2 watts. So they don't carry a long distance. So we have 21 volunteers throughout the community, Security Patrol is one of them, that do monitoring in an emergency when the cell system likely will go down, but the Hillsborough County has declared an activation. We start monitoring, and we monitor 24/7. As long as we're available, people that are doing the monitoring may have their own issues, but as long as we can keep that radio system going, we're listening for a low power call for an emergency. And we are then in contact with the squad, with Hillsborough County dispatcher through 911, so we can get that call out. Now, you know, as was said earlier, there's going to be a period that emergency responses can't come out. Primarily, these emergencies happen, and these are very useful after the storm has passed, the wind has dropped down, services are available again. Okay, and this is just an example. You take this small radio and use it like a small cell phone or something where you can make a call. We have a listening station, next slide. And these listening stations around the community have a taller antenna, they have a little higher power, so then they can relay that message either directly to the squad or to the 911 dispatcher, or they can relay it to the Sun City Center radio club, who uses a taller antenna and also has a more powerful radio, and they can call the squad or the emergency. Okay, that's the way it works. Next slide. Once you call the squad, the dispatcher does the same thing they would normally do, receiving a message over the telephone. And we practice that every Wednesday. We'll have 5, 6, 7 people call the squad and verify that they hear us, we hear them, and we call it a signal report. So we know that we can make that contact when necessary. And then, of course, next slide, they dispatch the ambulance and things are back somewhat like normal without a phone. Next slide, please. Okay, there's no guarantee. I mean, anything. We make our best effort. We're all volunteers. There's no one making any payments or income from this. The other thing about these little radios, not only do you talk to the listening stations, but you can talk to each other. If you're in an association and there might be 3 or 4 neighbors that have these same radios, you can call and say, hey, I'm okay, how's you doing? Well, my roof, is holding on, I'm okay. You can get that reassurance using these radios, talking to your neighbors. They have 16 channels in them, so we use one of the channels, which we'd like to keep pretty much clear for our use, but you can switch to another channel and your whole association could have your own back channel to talk to and know what's going on. When the power's out and the phones are out, you still have a way to talk to your neighbor. Okay, we will have a setup in the banquet room with a few flyers and handouts. We'll be selling radios down in our radio club. They'll direct you on how to get down there. They're only $15. If you're interested, come by, pick up a flyer, and drop down, and we'll help you get set up. We have over 500 radios in the community. About 10% of them are in Sun City. The other 90% are here in Kings Point. We're trying to expand our program because the more people that are listening, the more chance there is that you have somebody to hear you when you make an emergency call. Okay, I'll take questions in the other room. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you. Next up, we have Angela Wesley from TECO.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Angie Leslie, Tampa Electric Emergency Management. It's great to have all these wonderful speakers here presenting on areas of expertise. You hear the common theme of making a plan. Well, please be assured that Tampa Electric also has their own restoration plans. In fact, we have a variety of plans because while hurricanes are the most impactful to our community, we have a variety of other threats and hazards that we also plan for. We work with our community partners like the emergency management agencies, our first responders, to coordinate our plans and activities, including exercises, so that we are prepared to restore the community. We do prepare year-round, so it's not a January through May or a June through December type event. We plan year-round, and we take lessons learned from other storms that we have had to make our planning more resilient and more responsive. We do spend a significant amount of money annually. We have and will continue to do that in order to make our infrastructure more resilient to weather type events. So that includes more tree vegetation management, installing more stronger poles, undergrounding overhead type facilities. So we do this on an annual basis, and we will continue to do that because we know how important power is to you and to our community as a whole. During a storm, we communicate with our customers through our communications department, through our website, through a variety of sources. And there's a lot of information on our website about storm safety, whether it be before, during, and after the storm. A lot of these experts talked about making a plan. Are you going to evacuate? Are you going to shelter in place? One thing to make sure that you have, regardless of what your plan includes, is having that disaster kit. What are those key items that you need to take with you, whether you're heading to a shelter, a friend or family's home, or if you are going to be going to a shelter? Those items include, flashlights, batteries, medication, anything that you are going to need for a short period of time. Make sure that you take with you important documentations, important contact information. I spoke to a young lady out in the banquet room earlier, and she said that she had a book of all of her detailed contact information. That's a part of making a plan. You can also register on ticoaccount.com. If you have a smartphone, you can get updates for outages. You can text that your power is out, and it will send you an update. If some of you have generators, it's important to follow the guidelines from the generators. Manufacturers, make sure that you don't put them in enclosed spaces like a garage. Make sure that you test it at least twice a year. Make sure that you keep fuel outside of enclosed areas as well. When we talk about after the storm, the restoration plan, we continue to work with our first responder agencies to prioritize areas of restoration to those that are most impactful to the community. So we work very closely with our partner agencies to conduct the restoration efforts, including embedding resources in search and rescue and debris clearing activities, because we know that when there is a dangerous situation, like flooding, like down power lines, it's important to take care of those. And that's a word of advice to everyone. Please stay out of the flood areas. Primarily, you don't know what is in those flood waters. There could be a power line that you can't see, or there could be some other hazardous condition. Make sure that you don't go into those areas. And just as a side note, my colleague Brandon and I will be in the banquet room with some brochures and some goodies for you. Please stop by and visit us. Thank you very much.
All right, from the Men's Club, Claire Feeney.
Good morning. Unfortunately, I have to tell you, if you have a lifeline, it's probably not going to work in a hurricane, because if you get a power outage or the cell service goes down, there is no way to communicate with it. It's unfortunate. One thing I would encourage all of you who have a car or a golf cart is to make sure there's a charge point in there. I mean, your golf cart's a massive cell phone recharger, but make sure you've got an adapter that will work with it, and do that beforehand. Most people that have phones in their house today have a base unit with 3 or 4 handsets. That phone system relies on power to the base. If the power goes out, that's not going to work. The other thing is most people today, if they have a Spectrum phone, it's running what they call voice over internet protocol, which is VoIP. It relies on the internet being up. And if there's a power failure, generally the Spectrum system goes down. It's not going to work. Now, if you have a cell phone, and a lot of our units are cell phones, and there's a cell tower close by that still works, the lifeline will still work. You've got to keep it charged though. So you figure out some way to keep your system charged. The calls will go through because our call centers are up north. We don't have any call center locally. So they're gonna get a call up there, but I don't know whether anybody's gonna be able to respond down here. And I'll be in the other room if anybody has any questions.
All right, next up we have Brian Burns and Adam LePatin from USI.
Good morning. Just Brian this morning. Good to see everybody. My name is Brian Burns, Senior Vice President at USI Insurance Services. We are your insurance advocate. We are your insurance agent. We place your business with Heritage Insurance, who's here today. Does anybody know how many storms have hit, major hurricanes have hit the Gulf Coast in the past 7 years? I think yes, 8. Okay, there's been 8 storms along the Gulf Coast. So the Gulf of Mexico is cooking with storms. Okay, this is not a case of if we're going to get hit by a storm. It's a case of where that storm is going to land when you're at 8 out of the past 7 years. So 2 things that I think are handy dandy documents that are live on your website. I will also have them in the banquet after this. One is a disaster preparedness guide. This guide has some neat information about checklists, things you need to have prepared. One of those key elements, I see some of the folks back there in the bleachers, are restoration contractors. Insurance can bring you checks all day long, but they can't do anything with rebuilding your property. And so having a relationship with a restoration contractor that can be there to rebuild your unit, to rebuild your association, is critical in the event of a loss. One of the main lessons we learned after the storms of Irma and Ian is that those that didn't have relationships with quality restoration contractors had their claims go the worst because they didn't have people there to actually do the work. It takes a long time to get permits. It takes a long time to get roofing material and those types of things. And so the sooner you can get that rolling with a quality contractor, the better. The other thing with regards to the disaster preparedness guide is you might be prepared, but perhaps your neighbor's not. Okay, perhaps there's somebody, in my opinion, the thing that separates Kings Point from the other 700 communities that we handle is the sense of community here and the volunteers and the people up front. And so, perhaps there's someone around the corner that was recently widowed, or perhaps someone's having some memory challenges. Reach out to them and see if they have a plan. Do your part of the community as a neighbor to try to help people. So you may have a plan, but reach out to see if others may as well, or may not, or if you could help them all. Maybe you have a generator. Offer them a place to stay if the power goes out. So I challenge you as a call to action to help your neighbors and the other people in your association. The other item that we have today is a unit owner's guidebook. Those of you might have seen this over the years, but this is specific to the insurance product itself. Okay, a couple key elements in this insurance guide. One is it talks about what the guidelines are of 718 about what you're responsible to insure for as a unit owner. Okay, the association's interest ends at the unfinished drywall. So anything on the interior, floor coverings, wall coverings, cabinets, any of that type of stuff is on you to insure. If you have any questions about that, see me or my associates in the banquet hall after this, or call my cell at any point in time. The other element on this guide that's critical is a loss assessment page. Those of you might have heard me talk about this before, but you as unit owners are going to be responsible for the portion of the large deductible that we have on our master program through Heritage Insurance. Okay, so let's say Hurricane Bardell comes through Ruskin, okay, does a couple $1 million of damage. The first line that they do is assess all the unit owners for their portion of our deductibles on the master policy. Okay, you can get insurance for that exposure through your individual HO6 policies. Okay, so the policies that say Bob Smith that you buy individually, there's something called loss assessment coverage on that. They provide a minimum of $2,000 of loss assessment, and you can call your agent after Debbie sends out the association loss assessment notices in May and say, my exposure is actually $8,500 or $9,500. And you can buy more loss assessment coverage, which is generally nominal cost, $14 a year, something like that. And then that way, if Hurricane Bardell rips through the community, the people funding the deductible is not coming out of your pocket, but rather from your HO6 carriers. So that's just a couple of key elements. There's a lot more to insurance than the time I have up here today. But I do want to take a quick moment. Jim, if you want to come up. Heritage has been a long-standing partner of ours on our property insurance. It's a very well-run carrier, one of the few that have made it through our insurance crisis with flying colors. And so I just wanted to give Jim a quick chance to introduce himself.
Thank you, Brian. As Brian said, my name is Jim Hassan. I'm the president of the Commercial Insurance Division of Heritage. I want to thank the Insurance Committee for inviting us to be part of the day this morning. It's a great event. I'd also like to thank Brian and his team at USI. They are a very big partner of ours at Heritage, and I can assure you that they're a great advocate of you and a great risk management partner for Kings Point. I'd like to just say, excuse me, reassure you that Heritage will be there when an event happens. You know, a hurricane happens, we'll be there. We've been paying for storms over the last 10 years plus. So I have Kevin Scott here from my marketing team, Morgan Ackert here from my claims team. We'll be next door, answer any questions you have. But you want stability and financial reinsurance, and when an event occurs, that your insurance company will be there for you, and we've proven that over time. Lastly, this is a great event you have. You have a great team of professionals here, all talking about a couple of things, planning and being prepared. So I can't stress that enough for everybody on an individual basis as a community as a whole. Thanks for having us today.
Thanks, Jim. We appreciate you. And also my associate Alex up here who handles all our loss control engineering work. So I'm speaking on behalf of our team today. So thank you, everybody. We look forward to seeing you next door. We got all kinds of chip clips, bottle openers, flashlights. Hope you brought your backpacks.
All right, was Alex speaking, Brian, or? Okay. All right, and I can just attest what they just said about these folks being here after Ian, Marianne, and myself were here first thing in the morning as soon as it was safe after the storm. And I think we were both surprised to see Brian. He was right here with us and had already driven around and did an assessment, so. And our last speaker, we're almost there, is Mr. Ray Shaw. He is on the Federation Board and a member of their insurance committee.
Good morning, and I'm going to stand up because I like that better too. Everybody's been talking about theoretical, what's going to happen. I have been in the insurance industry, I think it's 47 years. I'm no longer in the insurance industry, I'm retired, but I have been to every hurricane and earthquake from about 1995 to 2.5 years ago when I retired. I know what they are. I've been in 2 of them. How many of people have been in a hurricane here? Okay. How many people have been in a hurricane in Tampa Bay? Okay, that's amazing because there hasn't been one for over 100 years. That has actually come ashore in Tampa Bay area. So the couple times we've had an event in the last couple of years, those were tropical windstorms when they got here. They were not hurricanes. I was in the first hurricane I was in, I I did everything possible that you can do wrong. We were at a softball tournament for my daughter on the East Coast in Jupiter, Florida. Half the group went back to Clearwater, where I lived at the time, and they got caught on Highway 60 in the storm. We were smarter. We stayed in that condominium and got drunk as we could. Windows, your windows for your doors, glass doors, they were bowing in, and we were thinking that's pretty funny. When the storm passed, we went down to the ocean because it was the eye of the hurricane. We wanted to see what the ocean looked like, and myself and several other stupid people got in the ocean. Those are all things you should not do. When Katrina hit, and everybody knows it hit actually Mississippi, and some part of it went into Louisiana and New Orleans, it actually hit in West Palm Beach, Florida first. And I was at a conference at West Palm Beach talking about hurricanes. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, when I heard the wind in my room, about 6 stories up, I looked out and palm trees were touching the ground, and I got in my car, which again is really stupid, and drove back to Clearwater. And in in Okeechobee, I got stopped by a police officer because I was going 105 miles an hour. And he said, "Are you crazy?" And I said, "Probably, but give me my ticket. I got to get home. There's a hurricane coming." And he said, "Good luck." So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what it's like to actually, that's what it's like before. I'll talk about what I do here, and I'm not suggesting you should, but I have been prepared for a hurricane here for 10 years, and I am as prepared as you can be. And I'll tell you exactly what I've done. I'm also going to talk to you a little bit about a couple of the hurricanes I've been to, and I'll make it as short as I can. Katrina. Katrina was a horrible hurricane. I spent 14 weeks in New Orleans and in Mississippi. Mississippi was much worse than New Orleans. They had terrible surge. People in Mississippi were wonderful. In New Orleans, I handled a loss called Redemptress, which was an old age, kind of like us, but it was a low-income housing project. Everyone had been removed from the building, we thought. 14 weeks after the storm, if you've ever seen Salvador Dali painting of the melting clocks, I walked into a room, my flashlight wasn't working very well. It was 14 weeks after the storm, there was no electricity. And the walls were moving. And I thought, God, I've been too hot, I gotta get some water. If the flashlight worked a little bit, turned it on. The walls were moving because of cockroaches. Thousands of them. I looked down, there's rats. And I flashed over and I'm looking at some chairs on the other side of a fairly small room, and I go, God, what in the world am I looking at? This is the Salvador Dali. I was looking at 2 human beings that have been dead for 14 weeks. These storms are bad. Be prepared. Charlie. When Charlie hit in 2005, there were 3 storms. All of them crossed over Lake Wales, Florida. A friend of mine lived in Lake Wales. He was in Wisconsin. He said, can you come out to my property and take a look at it? And I said, yeah, I'm surveying a lot of the area. I'll stop by. I got on his property, which was 10 acres. He owns citrus at the time. And I started walking to find his house. And for some reason, sells work that day. And I called him and said, Lynn, I can't find your house. He said, you mean it's gone? I said, no, I can't find it, and I'm lost on your property, and I can't figure out how to get off it because there were so many trees down. By the way, in a major hurricane, almost every leaf will be off the tree, and the only thing you'll see is plastic bags from Walmart hung up in the trees because of water, and women's brassieres. A lot of them. The last storm I'll talk about is Wilma, the year of Katrina. The last storm of the year, I think, was Wilma. It hit in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area. People are pretty nice after storms, believe it or not. But I was in the 8th floor, I think, of a condominium. We opened the door, 8 floors up, and there was between 1 and 2 feet of sand throughout that condominium. These storms are amazing. As far as what I do for preparedness, I made sure I bought a house that was new enough, and I think most of the houses in Kings Point, not all of them, my house has hurricane clips. And yours do. And the hurricane clips you really can't see. They're up in the attic, and you attach the trusses to the cement blocks, and if it's done right, it's attached all the way to the foundation. I can't do anything about that. I have windows that are good for 185 miles an hour. I have a bladder. This is something everybody can do. It's relatively cheap. You can get them on Amazon. I have a bladder. It'll take 30 to 40 gallons of water. That's fresh water you can drink because the water may not be on for a long, long time. I have a whole house air generator. And I'm sorry, but I already have 25 couples committed to staying in my house. So we're gonna have a party. I also have, you may have different things for your windows. Whatever you have, that's good. It'll protect you a little bit. I have 3 spots that are not protected by the 185-mile-an-hour winds. The 2 windows I have in my garage and the entrance area. Now, some of you will also have a lanai. The lanai in your entrance area, if you walk into it, are the 2 weakest points in a hurricane. And I spent the last 20 years of my career as a claims adjuster doing this stuff. It'll be where the roof will lift off because it has an opportunity to get underneath there. So on the east coast of Florida, and I don't remember the name of the company, there's a company that sells the best product possible to protect it. It's made out of something like Kevlar. It's very light. I put it up with screws. I walk in my house, and the wind's on one side are 200 miles an hour. On the other side of my house, it's 5 miles an hour. It protects the house. Last, and this is really easy, if you do have a garage, I would recommend if your car is inside, get it as tight to the garage door as you can. If it's outside, get it as tight to the garage door as you can because it will help strengthen that door a little bit. If you have any questions about what these storms are like, I'd be happy to talk to you. We do have a very good insurance company that's A-rated. And we are as prepared as we can from an insurance standpoint on the Federation Board. I do chair that committee. I wish you all the best, but if you hadn't heard anything else, have a plan. Don't think you can have a plan 5 hours before the storm, because if you are out on the highways, you are really going to be in trouble. Thank you.
All right, so that concludes our speakers. I would like to thank everybody at the panel here today for taking their time out of their busy schedules to come and speak to us all today. Thank all of you for coming. All of this information and many, many more resources are available on the disaster planning website, which is kpmaster.com/disaster planning. And then, of course, all of our vendors are set up in the banquet room with some tchotchkes and are set up and available to answer your questions. So please stop by and see them.